Do you think abandoned towns are just broken houses and a few ghost stories? Then stop right there, because in Georgia there are towns where if you type the name into your GPS, it doesn't take you to a road. It takes you to the edge of the water, and there are places that still exist on the map today. But before you can even step inside, the military has to give permission. These towns didn't disappear by magic. They were slowly erased by bad decisions, human greed, brutal wars, and a deep, uncomfortable silence. This video will change the way you look at Georgia forever. Because today, we're uncovering the 10 most abandoned towns in Georgia, places that didn't just shut down, they were removed from everyday life. Make sure you watch this video till the very end, because at the end, we'll reach the town that still feels like it's breathing under the water. And if you enjoy hidden, real, and unsettling history, and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and a comment below. Which place do you find the most terrifying? Because some towns never truly go silent. Number 10. Auraria, the gold town that lost twice. Auraria is the kind of place that makes you feel bad for rooting for it, because this town didn't fail early. It came heartbreakingly close to winning. Auraria was born during the Georgia Gold Rush, a moment in history when ordinary land suddenly turned into obsession. People didn't come here to build homes, raise families, or settle down. They came with one goal and one goal only: to strike gold and leave rich. And for a brief moment it worked. By the 1830s, Auraria had nearly 1,000 residents, which was massive for a gold town that appeared almost overnight. Tents turned into cabins, cabins turned into businesses, and the town grew fast enough to convince itself that it wasn't temporary anymore. Auraria even became the county seat for a short time. That mattered more than it sounds. Courts, land records, officials, and power follows paperwork, and for a while, Auraria believed it had secured its place in the future. Then everything started to unravel. The first blow came quietly. The county seat was moved to nearby Dahlonega. No fire, no violence, just a decision made on paper. And with that single move, money, influence, and attention began drifting away. The second blow was devastating. In 1838, Dahlonega was awarded a United States branch mint. That one decision told the entire country where the center of gold really was. And it wasn't Auraria anymore. Investors followed. Merchants followed. The future followed, but the final blow didn't come from Georgia at all. It came from the West. When the California gold rush exploded, it offered a louder dream, a bigger gamble, and a promise that made Georgia's gold feel small. The same people who once believed Auraria was the answer packed up their tools, their hope and their ambition, and left. Auraria didn't burn. It wasn't destroyed by war. It didn't collapse overnight. It simply stood there and watched the future walk away. Today, what remains is almost cruel in its simplicity. A roadside marker, a quiet stretch of land, and silence in a place where greed, hope, and ambition once screamed at full volume. So here's the question that lingers longer than the town itself. If a single decision, made just a few miles away, can erase an entire town from history, how secure do you think success really is when everyone else decides where the spotlight goes? Number 9. Sunbury, Georgia's forgotten port. Sunbury should not feel this quiet, and that's exactly what makes it disturbing. This place was once considered Georgia's second most important port. Right behind Savannah, ships came and went. Cargo moved constantly. Money changed hands. The air was loud with trade, arguments, ambition, and opportunity. Sunbury wasn't just alive, and it was confident about its future. Today, that confidence is gone. Where docks once stood, there are trees. Where merchants once argued over prices, there is moss. And where crowds once gathered, there are graves. Sunbury didn't fall because of one single disaster. It was crushed by a chain of them. War struck first, shaking the region and turning a busy port into an uncertain gamble. Trade hates uncertainty, and merchants don't wait around when cannons and smoke enter the conversation. Then nature followed. Powerful coastal storms battered the area, destroying docks, warehouses, and ships, the very things a port depends on to survive. And finally came disease. Yellow fever swept through Sunbury, emptying streets and driving families away in fear. You can rebuild a pier, you can rebuild a warehouse, but when people stop trusting the air they breathe, they leave and then they don't come back. By the 1840s, Sunbury was already being described as a ghost town. Not abandoned slowly over centuries, but emptied within a single generation. A place that once handled the movement of goods, now couldn't hold on to its own people. The cruelest part of Sunbury's story is what survived. Not the port, not the marketplace, not the homes or the streets. The most visible reminder today is the cemetery, rows of graves beneath oak trees draped in Spanish, moss mark where an entire town used to exist. It's as if the living were erased so completely that only the dead were left behind to prove Sunbury was ever real. And here's the question that stays with you long after you leave. If a town that controlled trade, ships, and wealth could vanish so completely that only its cemetery remains, how fragile do you think modern cities really are when confidence disappears? Number 8. High Falls, the town that had power but lost the future. High Falls looked like a town that could never fail. Nature had already done the hardest part. A massive 135-foot waterfall crashed down the Toaliga River, producing constant, reliable power long before electricity grids existed. In the 1800s, that kind of energy was priceless. It meant mills could run all day. It meant factories didn't depend on luck. It meant jobs, growth, and stability. And High Falls took full advantage of it. This wasn't a sleepy village clinging to one business. It was a working industrial town. Cotton mills processed raw material into profit. Grist mills ground grain. Blacksmith shops shaped iron. Stores supplied workers. Hotels housed travelers and traders passing through. Every sound in town, the water, the machinery, the footsteps that meant money was moving. People didn't just live here. They depended on this place. They built their lives around the roar of the waterfall. High Falls believed it had already won. Then came the railroad. Railroads didn't just move people. They decided which towns mattered. Steel tracks became arteries of the future, and wherever they stopped, towns exploded with growth. But when planners drew the lines, High Falls was skipped. The railroad passed close enough to hear about, but far enough to kill it. No flood destroyed the town. No fire burned it down. No war erased it overnight. The waterfall kept flowing. The mills could still run. The town was still standing. But trade stopped coming through. Goods couldn't move efficiently. Travelers no longer passed by. Investors looked elsewhere. Young people left. One family at a time, the town emptied itself without ever realizing it was dying. High Falls didn't collapse, and it faded. By the late 1800s, what had once been a busy industrial center was becoming a memory. Buildings fell quiet. Machinery rusted. Purpose drained away. And even after it became a ghost town, the place wasn't done changing. In 1994, major flooding damaged parts of the area, rearranging what little remained, as if nature itself was rewriting the final chapter. Today, High Falls exists inside a state park. People come for peace, for fresh air, for hiking trails and scenic photos. Most of them never realize they're walking through the skeleton of a town that once believed it was essential to the future. High Falls didn't lose because it failed. It lost because progress took a different route. So here's the question that lingers louder than the waterfall itself. If success can disappear simply because the future passes a few miles away, how many powerful places, ideas, or people are being forgotten right now? Not because they lack value, but because they were left off the map. Number 7, Scull Shoals, the town that suffocated on its own success. Scull Shoals didn't disappear in a single disaster. It didn't burn. It wasn't abandoned overnight. And it wasn't defeated by war. It slowly ran out of breath. In 1811, Scull Shoals made history by becoming the home of Georgia's very first paper mill. That alone should have secured its place in the future. By the early 1800s, the town had grown into a full-scale industrial community. Mills, warehouses, worker housing, and hundreds of people whose lives were tied to the steady rhythm of machines powered by the Oconee River. For decades, the town thrived. Cotton from surrounding farms fed the mills. The river provided power. Money moved. Jobs stayed. Scull Shoals wasn't just surviving, and it was productive, efficient, and essential. But the same system that built the town quietly began destroying it. Upstream cotton farming expanded aggressively. Fields were stripped bare season after season. The protective topsoil disappeared inch by inch, year after year. That soil didn't vanish, it washed straight into the river. Silt began to choke the Oconee. The river slowed. Its flow changed. The natural shoals that once gave the town its name were buried under sediment. Flooding became more frequent. Water levels became unpredictable. And the steady power the mills depended on began to fail. The machines didn't stop all at once. They struggled. They stalled. They restarted and failed again. Major floods, including a devastating one in 1887, delivered the final blows. Machinery was damaged. Operations became unreliable. Workers left. Investment dried up. By 1900, Scull Shoals was finished. Not because there was no work, but because the way the work was done destroyed the very river that kept the town alive. Today, its ruins sit quietly along the riverbank. Brick walls half buried, stone foundations exposed like broken teeth pushing through the soil. Nature has moved back in, but it hasn't erased everything. It's as if history itself is still struggling to breathe through the remains. Scull Shoals didn't collapse from failure. It collapsed from success taken too far. So here's the question that refuses to stay buried. If a town can be destroyed not by lack of productivity, but by the cost of how it produces, how many modern systems are slowly suffocating themselves right now without realizing it? Number 6. Griswoldville, the town that produced power and paid the price. Griswoldville did not fade away like other towns. It didn't wither quietly or disappear over decades. No, this town's end was swift, intentional, and brutal. Founded along the Central of Georgia Railroad in Jones County, Griswoldville began as a factory town, a place where production dictated life. Samuel Griswold, one of the South's leading cotton gin manufacturers, built a company-style village around his factories. Streets, houses, workshops, and stores intertwined with the hum of machinery. This was not just a town. It was a living, breathing industrial engine. Then came the Civil War. Griswoldville's factories transformed from commercial production to military necessity. More than 3,700 revolvers were produced. Here for the Confederacy, tools of power, tools of resistance, tools that made the town a target. The hum of industry became the pulse of war, and the town itself became a symbol of both strength and vulnerability. November 20th, 1864, the Union Army arrived. Griswoldville's factories, its homes, its streets, all were set ablaze. Flames devoured what decades of labor had built. Smoke blanketed the town as workers, families, and machinery alike were scattered. 2 days later, the Battle of Griswoldville erupted nearby during Sherman's infamous March to the Sea. Young boys and elderly men of the Georgia militia charged into brutal combat, attempting to defend a town already condemned by circumstance. The fighting left scars both human and geographic, cementing the town's fate. After the war, Griswoldville never returned. The machines were silent. The factories were gone. Families who once thrived on its production moved on. The purpose that had defined the town was extinguished, and without purpose, Griswoldville ceased to exist. There were no slow ruins, no romantic decay, just absence, empty fields, and markers attempting to explain a town that history had deliberately erased. Griswoldville wasn't lost by chance. It was removed from the map by design. Its life, its labor, and its energy became its undoing. Walking through the site today, you see open ground where ambition once roared. The wind whispering the stories of a town that didn't merely vanish, it was silenced. And the question lingers long after you leave. When a town's very success makes it a target, can survival ever be more than luck? Or is destruction sometimes the inevitable price of power? Number 5. New Manchester Mill, the town that vanished in a single afternoon. New Manchester Mill didn't fade slowly. It didn't decline quietly over decades. It was obliterated, every structure, every life tethered to it, gone in a single day. Just 15 miles from the bustling heart of Atlanta, this town thrived around a 5-story water-powered textile mill. The Sweetwater Creek fed the mill with relentless energy. Looms spun cotton into cloth day and night. Workers lived in neat houses nearby. Families grew. Shops catered to every need. Streets hummed with life and ambition. The town was alive, vibrant, industrial Georgia at its peak. Then came July 9th, 1864. Union forces reached New Manchester as part of the Civil War campaign. Their mission was precise: destroy the mill, the town, the source of Confederate production. Fire spread through the wooden beams of the mill, engulfing the heart of industry. Homes where workers had laughed, cooked, and slept went up in flames. Shops and streets were abandoned in panic. The rhythm of life, decades of effort, was extinguished in hours. There was no warning, no slow decline. The town didn't have time to react. Children, workers, families, their lives shattered in a single strike. Machinery that had hummed day and night, powering a community, stood silent, ruined, and useless. Today, remnants remain: roofless brick walls, foundations exposed to the elements, debris half swallowed by nature. Sweetwater Creek continues its eternal flow, indifferent to the history it powered, carrying with it echoes of spinning wheels, rushing feet, and vanished lives. The walls, standing like hollow sentinels, tell a story of sudden erasure, a town wiped off the map before it could even say goodbye. New Manchester Mill reminds us that sometimes history doesn't announce its endings. Some endings are violent, instantaneous, and irreversible. They leave behind ruined silence and lessons for anyone who dares to witness them. And the question that hangs heavy in the air as you walk among those empty walls and flowing waters is, if an entire town can be erased in a single afternoon, how much of what we consider permanent in our own lives is just a heartbeat away from vanishing? Number 4, Ebenezer Creek, the crossing that became a trap. Ebenezer Creek was never a city. It had no streets, no bustling markets, no industrial pulse. Yet in 1864, it became the final stage for hundreds of human lives, a place where hope collided violently with betrayal. During Sherman's infamous march through Georgia, thousands of enslaved people followed the Union Army, walking tirelessly, carrying children, the sick, and the elderly. They moved with desperate faith, believing the Army's path meant liberation, safety, and the possibility of a new life free from chains. At Ebenezer Creek, the Army constructed a temporary bridge across the water. For those fleeing bondage, it was a lifeline, a chance to cross from captivity into freedom. Families clung to each other as they stepped onto the wooden planks, hearts pounding, eyes searching the opposite shore. The Army crossed, and then the bridge was destroyed. Suddenly, the creek became a barrier of life and death. Those still on the wrong side faced a horrifying choice. Some leapt into the rushing water, only to be swept away by the current, powerless against the force of nature. Others, too weak, too burdened with children or illness, remained on the banks where Confederate forces captured them again, dragging them back into slavery. The water flowed on, indifferent, carrying away dreams and bodies alike. Ebenezer Creek's emptiness today is deceptive. There are no ruins, no collapsed buildings, no abandoned streets. Its silence is heavy with history, echoing the betrayal, the screams, and the fear that unfolded in a single moment of calculated inhumanity. The creek now glimmers under sunlight, waves lapping gently at its banks. The wind moves softly through the trees. Grass bends with the water's flow. Nature has reclaimed the place. Yet beneath this calm lies the memory of what was lost. Thousands of lives, stolen freedom, broken hope. Walking along the banks, you can almost sense the shadows of those who never crossed. The weight of desperation that hung in the air, the haunting quiet of human tragedy etched into the landscape. And the question that refuses to fade as the waters move relentlessly forward is, if freedom can be snatched away in an instant, if hope can be betrayed by those who are meant to protect it, how fragile is the justice and compassion we take for granted today? Number 3, Oscarsville, the town submerged by water and prejudice. Oscarsville is a town you cannot visit. It doesn't appear on conventional maps. It doesn't have streets you can walk or shops you can enter, because it sits beneath the waters of Lake Lanier, hiding an entire community erased not by nature, but by human cruelty. In 1912, Oscarsville was a small but vibrant town in Forsyth County, Georgia. Families lived, children played, neighbors worked together. The town had homes, schools, churches, and a rhythm of daily life that stretched back generations. Then came a false accusation that would destroy everything. A white woman was murdered, and the blame was placed on young black men. Fueled by fear, prejudice, and violence, a mob bypassed justice entirely. Families were forced to flee their homes. Their houses were burned, businesses destroyed. Generations of community and history vanished overnight. Streets emptied, gardens rotted, life stopped. Silence replaced the laughter of children, the chatter of neighbors, and the pulse of everyday work. Those who survived were scattered, exiled from the town that had once been their home. Oscarsville became a ghost town, its memory already fading from the land it had occupied. Years later, the construction of Lake Lanier completed the erasure. The water rose over the foundations, filling streets, homes, and history. The town disappeared beneath the lake's surface, leaving only the shoreline for visitors to stand and imagine what was lost. Typing Oscarsville into a GPS today brings you not to the heart of a town, but to the edge of a serene lake, whose calm waters hide the cries, dreams, and lives of an entire community silenced by injustice. Oscarsville is not merely a ghost town. It is a monument to the dangers of prejudice, the consequences of false accusations, and the way entire communities can be erased when fear and hatred override humanity. Standing at the water's edge, you can feel the weight of history pressing down, the echoes of lives stolen, and the injustice that refuses to stay submerged entirely. The lake seems peaceful, but beneath the surface lies a story of heartbreak, loss, and systemic cruelty. And the question that stares back at you from the lake's reflective surface is, if an entire town can be erased not by floods, but by fear, hatred, and lies, how many hidden injustices still lie, submerged beneath the calm surfaces of our own communities today? Number 2, the military restricted town, a place frozen in time. This town still exists, yet it remains invisible to the world. Streets twist through quiet neighborhoods. Houses and buildings stand silently, windows staring blankly at empty roads. The air is heavy with absence. You can see the rooftops from a distance, the outline of what once was, but you cannot step inside. The entire area is locked behind barbed wire, fences, and heavily guarded gates. This is a military zone, a town frozen under authority denied to the public. During World War II and the Cold War, settlements like this were built in a rush. Barracks, schools, clinics, and housing appeared almost overnight. Families, workers, and soldiers filled the streets, giving life to the place. Children ran on playgrounds. Cars moved along roads, markets hummed, and the town pulsed with purpose. Then the work ended. Factories closed, military operations shifted, and the residents left. The town emptied as quickly as it was filled. Unlike other ghost towns, this place did not decay through neglect. It froze in time. Buildings remain intact, streets still stretch unbroken, and signs of daily life linger. Abandoned tools, parked vehicles, empty benches, and quiet playgrounds. The town exists as a snapshot of human life, suspended mid-motion. Even from beyond the fences, you can feel its presence. The silence isn't just quiet, it's heavy, almost palpable. The town holds memories of laughter, footsteps, whispered conversations, and everyday routines. It is haunted not by ghosts, but by the traces of life that was abruptly frozen. This is a town that didn't fail, didn't burn, didn't flood. It was imprisoned, locked away behind authority. It's a stark reminder that some places vanish from public view not through disaster, but by human control, fully alive yet untouchable. Standing at the edge of the gates, staring through the fences at streets still lined with homes, you feel the weight of absence, the echo of suspended life. And the question that pierces the stillness is, if an entire town can exist, fully formed yet forever off limits, how many histories, lives, and stories are trapped behind walls we will never cross? Number 1, Georgia's most haunting submerged town, a town drowned by human hands. This is a town that did not die naturally. It was intentionally drowned, erased from the map and from daily life. When the lake was planned, residents were told to leave. Families packed what they could carry. Some moved graves to new cemeteries, while others could not afford to take anything. Homes, churches, schools, and streets that had once thrived with life were abandoned. The town's heartbeat, the laughter of children, the chatter of neighbors, the hum of work, was silenced almost overnight. As the waters rose, they swallowed everything. Foundations disappeared beneath waves, doors and windows were claimed by the lake, and entire streets vanished. Buildings that had witnessed generations of life, celebrations, and hardships now lie beneath the surface, invisible but still present in memory. Today, visitors to the lake see calm water, but if you look closely, traces of the town remain. Trees still rise where streets once ran, and under boats gliding across the surface. Submerged roads and foundations lie hidden. The water is serene, yet beneath it flows the weight of erased lives, of families uprooted, and of decisions that change the fate of a community forever. The fear here is not about ghosts. It's about the power of human decisions, how quickly and completely an entire town can vanish, under the choices of a few. One day this place was alive, full of people and purpose. The next day it became a lake, swallowing history and memory beneath its quiet surface. Standing at the edge of the water, imagining the submerged streets, the silent homes, and the memories lying underwater, the magnitude of that loss is impossible to ignore. The lake is peaceful, yet it hums with stories of people who were forced out, of lives interrupted, and of communities erased. And the question that rises with every ripple is, if an entire town can be erased in a single decision, hidden beneath calm waters, how many histories, dreams, and lives remain submerged today, invisible yet profoundly real? As we leave the submerged streets of Georgia's most haunting town behind, and trace the echoes of abandoned towns like Oscarsville, Ebenezer Creek, New Manchester, Griswoldville, High Falls, Sunbury, Auraria, and the military restricted cities, one truth becomes clear. These towns did not vanish randomly. They were shaped, erased, and haunted by human decisions. Wars, greed, and neglect. Some fell slowly. Their streets emptied as factories closed, railroads bypassed them, or gold rushes moved fortunes and lives elsewhere. Others were erased suddenly, in a single day, burned to the ground, or drowned beneath the waters of a new lake. And some remain fully intact, frozen in time, unreachable behind fences, as if the past itself was put under lock and key. Walking through these stories, it becomes impossible to see them as simple ghost towns. Each is a mirror of human ambition, error, and consequence. They are lessons written in brick, stone, mud, and water. They remind us that cities, communities, and dreams are fragile, and even the most thriving town can vanish if the currents of history, policy, or nature shift against it. The silence that hangs over these towns is not empty. It hums with memory. The rustling trees, the flowing rivers, the calm lakes, the remnants of walls and foundations. They speak of lives lived, dreams chased, mistakes made, and futures lost. They whisper stories of families, laborers, soldiers, and children, all caught in the sweep of events bigger than themselves. And perhaps the most haunting realization is this: these towns exist still, in memory and in water, in ruins and reflections, but they are invisible to most of us. We can walk past the lake, the forests, the fences, and the empty streets, unaware of the stories submerged beneath our feet or hidden from our view. Yet for those who pause, who look closely, who imagine deeply, these towns teach us about time, loss, and the weight of human choices. So as we step away from these places, as the sun dips below the trees and the waters shimmer over the towns that once were, we are left with a question that will not leave us easily. If entire towns can vanish from the world in a day, or be drowned beneath lakes, hidden behind fences, or erased by history, how many stories, dreams, and lives around us today are silently slipping into oblivion, waiting for someone to remember them before they are gone forever? Remember, history is not only in books. Sometimes it is beneath the water, behind fences, in the silence of abandoned streets, one waiting for us to listen,